Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.
My name is Matthew Stubbs. I'm a Master of Wine. I'm English, living in the south of France, and I have a wine school called Vinécole, based about 20 minutes south of Carcassonne, where we do everything from 2-hour tastings to 5-day courses, wine tours, seminars, etc. It's a great place to learn about wine, and if you want some more information, our website is www.vinécole.com.
You know, so many of the French wines that people are purchasing around the world are coming from the south of France. A couple little factoids I want to share with you. Did you know that Languedoc Roussillon possesses some of the most complex geology in all of France? Or how about that Languedoc Roussillon boasts 1,029 organic wine producers? Or that there are 56 different grape varieties approved for IGP paid DOC wines. And this one I can't wait to hear about. I know Sirocco, but I don't know. There are many, many other wins, and they all have specific names to them. Well, beginning March 12th, the French Wine Society is launching a master level webinar program that is going to be taught by several experts on the south of France, but the lead instructor is Matthew Stubbs, who is Master of Wine, and he's talking to us from his home in the south of France. And Matthew, do you pronounce your last name Stubbs or Stubbs?
Stubbs.
You say Stubbs, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure. Okay.
No, I'm English, full and 100%.
100%,
Stubbs,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very difficult for the French to pronounce.
Oh, how do they pronounce it?
Oh, Stubbs or Stubbs, or they find it very difficult.
Oh, so you just have a quiet chuckle yourself every time you hear it.
Yeah, and we have 2 daughters, and they're at school all the time, so you can imagine how much fun they have when people try to pronounce their name.
Oh my gosh, yes. Do they get irritated with it, or are they already over it?
Oh, they're well over it now.
Yeah. Were your daughters born in France?
No, they were born in England.
How long have you lived in France?
We've lived in France for 9.5 years now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as we were talking before we started recording, you were working on your Master of Wine between 1992 and 1996, was it?
That's correct, yeah.
And so it was 1996 when you earned your MW title.
It was indeed, yeah.
And what was your reason for wanting to earn a Master of Wine title, if I can ask?
The reason I wanted to do it was purely and simply because I loved wine, and I'd done my WCT qualifications up to diploma level, and I just wanted to carry on learning. And the Master of Wine was the next step. So I just went straight from diploma to Master of Wine and carried on the learning process. And I didn't do it for any financial or commercial reasons. I did it purely because I love the topic. And I knew full well, obviously, that if I did pass, then it wouldn't do my career any harm.
Yes.
But that was not the main motivation for doing it.
Matthew, what were you doing before you were studying wine? Did you have a different career, or what did you study in college?
I studied languages in college. I did a degree in French and German. And then straight out of college, I went and did an MBA because I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left university with a language degree. So I did that for a year, and that sort of focused my mind somewhat. And I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, other than that I wanted to do something where I could use my languages and do something that I enjoyed. And I had met my wife, she was my girlfriend at that stage, whose father was a director of a wine company in London. And every time I went round to their house, they always had wine. And I just loved it. I just loved sitting up with her father. He would go and decant something, and we would drink some really nice stuff together. And I'd ask him lots of questions. And then one day, I remember he poured this wine in the glass, and I drank it, and thought, wow, that was fantastic. A sudden light went on in my head, and I said, what is that wine? That is unbelievable. And it turned out to be Chateau Gruel-Larose 1982. Oh, boy. And from that moment on, I said, I want to work in this business. And so he took me to his work one day, showed me around, and I met some of the buyers, tasted wines, went to the cellars. And then I said to him, well, how do I get a job in the wine industry? And he thrust this big directory in front of me called Harper's Directory, which was basically a list of all the major wine companies in the UK. Circled about a dozen and said, write to them. So I did. And I got a job with a company called Seagram, a famous company in the US. And that's how I started. And I didn't know anything about wine at the time, so I started, studying my wine exams right at the very bottom and carried on all the way through to the Master of Wine level. So
what did you say in your letter? Did you say, these are the 2 degrees I have, and I would like to pursue a career in wine? Will you hire me? I mean, is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, there was something like that. I can't remember exactly what I put in my letter, other than something like I'd just come out of university and I discovered I really like wine, and I'd like to look at getting a job with your company, something along those lines. And a number of them wrote back, and Seagram wrote back and said, actually, we have a graduate training program. Why don't you apply for that? So that's what I did. I applied for it and went through the interview process and got the job, and that's how I started.
The reason I like to ask these sort of questions is because so many people listening are in the same boat. They really don't know. They don't know how to get started, or they don't know how to take a degree that's not related to wine at all and somehow weave it into working in wine. Yeah.
I don't think it really matters what degree you do. I think you can do any degree and get into the wine business. I think it's just having an enthusiasm for the product, because that's really why people are in this business. It's a passion-led business. We do it because we love it so much. I found that when you get to the interview stage, then if that comes across, then people are very receptive, and generally that works. And most people don't know about wine when they start in the wine industry, but they start learning once they get into the industry. And that's what makes it so fun. I think a good place to start is a retail. I think most people that I know in the UK normally either started in a retail, started working in a wine shop, and that's how I started, because Seagram at the time owned Oddbins, which was a sort of famous chain of wine merchants in the UK. And I spent, as part of my training, 6 months or a year working with them, which was a fantastic grounding. And then, went on to work in different parts of the company, in sales and marketing and national accounts and finance and all sorts of different areas. And then I chose to work in sales, which I did for a number of years, and while I was studying. And then after that, I went more onto the buying side once I got my wine qualifications.
Yes.
And then we set up a wine division, basically importing wines mostly from the New World for the UK market.
Oh my gosh! When you were growing up in your family, did your parents drink wine with dinner, or at least on weekends?
No. This is why fortuitous meeting my wife, because because of her father's influence is why I'm in the wine business. Because in my family, wine was still a special occasion drink.
Yeah.
So birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas. Whereas in her family, it was just part of the normal diet. So it didn't matter whether you were, having a formal dinner party or watching the sport on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
They always opened a bottle of wine. And I just loved the whole casual ambiance, the fact that it was, just part of their lives. It wasn't anything that was any special ceremony or, had to have some special reason for opening it. They just did.
I just love your story. I hear this story from so many people, and here you are so... your position is really so exalted in the wine industry globally, and it's lovely to hear how you get started here. Well, now people, if people go to the grocery store or a wine shop to be buying wine, it's a growing section on the shelf of wines from the southern France, and certainly because the pricing is good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So talk to us. Let's get started with this conversation about this upcoming French Wine Society, 50 Shades of Grès. I like the way Julian has that titled. Master-Level webinar program. What is involved, and how do people sign up for this?
Well, what's involved? It's a program that we launched a year ago, and it's basically the first certified course on wines of the Languedoc Roussillon. Up until that point, there was no, certainly to my knowledge, there's no course that existed on wines of the regions for the south of France. And I met Julian, must be 3 years ago now, and I talked to him about the idea, and he was keen to produce a course too. So we worked together in producing the program, and then we got all the generic bodies of the south of France involved, led by Sud de France, who are the main regional body for promoting wine from this region, plus all the other interprofessionals like the AOCs for Languedoc, for Roussillon, the IGP of Van de Pay, for Anteroc, things like that. Mm-hmm. And the idea was to create a course which gave people details of everything from the history, climate, geology, all the different appellations, all the different IGPs, winemaking, a comprehensive knowledge of wines of this region. Because it is quite complex, and it's probably an area that people don't understand that well, certainly in the export markets, but even here in France it's not that well understood. And it has an image also of producing, high volume, low quality bulk wine.
Yes.
That's certainly the image that it had in the past, and this is one vehicle of trying to change people's perception of this region, because that's not what it's about now. That still exists, that's still an important part, but there's an enormous move towards quality, which has happened in the last 15 to 20 years. And that's what the story that now needs to be communicated.
I remember the first time that I really became aware of southern France, in particular as a resource for grapes, was, this may sound crazy, but like 25, 30 years ago when George Duboeuf started bottling varietals from the south of France. That was, to me, the first, I was aware of that. Matthew, we're going to go to a short break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Matthew Stubbs, Master of Wine, and he is the lead instructor for the French Wine Society's upcoming Sud de France Master-Level webinar program launching March 12th. Keep on listening right here on Wine and Dine. We'll be right back. Matthew Stubbs, Master of Wine, is an educator. He has his own wine education program called Vinécole, and the website is vinécole.com. And his program is housed at Domaine Gaeta, where evidently there's a restaurant, there's overnight accommodations. And Matthew, how did you make this connection with Domaine Gaeta to be the home for Vinécole wine education school?
Well, again, that was another slice of luck as well. I moved to France, as I say, just over 9 years ago, and my previous job in the UK, I'd been running a wine department for a major supermarket chain called Safeway, which a name you'll be familiar with in the US.
Yes. Yeah.
And in 2004, Safeway was bought by another supermarket chain in the UK, and I decided, this was not for me anymore, and my wife and I had long held an ambition to move to France, so we thought now's the time. So we moved, and I set up a consultancy business, dealing mostly with a lot of my former suppliers from my old job. So I ended up spending most of my time back in the UK. Oh. And then after about 18 months, I was thinking, this is not the reason I moved to France.
Yes.
And I had the idea of setting up a wine school, and I started talking to various partners down here about that. But people struggled to understand the concept. And after about 2 years, I was starting to lose a bit of faith. And then I got a phone call out of the blue one day from somebody who said, we've heard about what you're doing. Would you come and do some training for our staff? And I went there, and it was a wine domain called Domaine Gader, which had recently set up in the last couple of years. So I went there, met them. We agreed a day's training. I did a day's training for their staff. And in the evening, I had dinner with one of the owners. There's two owners. One's an English guy, another a South African guy. And, at the dinner, we had to talk, why are you living in France? Because we all have stories why we're living here, especially all us expats. And, what are your plans? And I said, well, my real plans are to set up a wine school. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? And I explained, and he said, well, we could do that here. What do you need? So I said, well, I need a tasting room. Yeah, well, we can do that. I'd like to be based at a winery. Well, obviously with that. A restaurant would be nice. Well, we've already got one of those. Some accommodation. Well, we're planning that in the next 12 months. Anyway, everything I said, they said, yeah, we can do that.
Oh, my.
So within half an hour, we'd thrashed out the bare bones of the plan, and then he said, well, you should go meet my business partner in London. So I flew to London the following week, met him, took the business plan, and he said, yeah, this is great. Let's go. So that was in the November, and we did all the work over the winter, and we opened the following July. 6 months later.
What kind of wines are made at Domaine Gader?
They make wines only under the IGP denomination, so under the name Forme Vin de Pays, for the simple reason is that they have vineyard not only where they are around their winery, they also have vineyard in various locations. So in Minevois-la-Livinière, which is an appellation 1 hour north of where they are. They also have lots of vineyard down in the south, in the Pyrenees, in the Roussillon, 1 hour south of the winery, in maybe 12 different locations. And they bring all the grapes to one place, and they make the wine there. And that is difficult to do under AOC regulations, so they prefer to do it under IGP, where you have more freedom. So although all their vineyard fruit comes from AOC-designated parcels, they don't call it AOC. It's all called IGP. And they make a range of wines from varietal, sort of Chardonnay, Viognier, Syrah, up to a top wine, a cuvée called Chemin de Moscou, which literally translates as the road to Moscow, which is our address.
Yes, I was wondering about that.
That was a name when they were looking for a name to come up with the top wine, and it was before my time. But this is what the winemaker told me. They sat down in smoke-filled rooms for about 3 days trying to come up with an idea, and they tried reserve this and excellence that, and then one day I think it was the winemaker said, why don't we just put our address on the label? Chemin de Moscou. So yeah, that's a good idea. So they did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why it's called Chemin de Moscou. As simple as that.
Oh, I love stories. Now, this upcoming Sud de France Master-Level webinar program were you the one that pulled together the different people to be teaching this, or was this you and Julian working together?
This was myself and Julian working together. When we came up with the program, Julian, he has experience of dividing these up into various webinar topics.
Yes.
So he came up with the idea about how many topics we needed to cover, and then I filled in all the content, and then we discussed who should we have as invited to talk about, and I said, well, we need to have some top experts, and so we chose the people accordingly. So we have Andrew Jefford, who's a very famous UK wine journalist.
Yes.
He now lives in the Languedoc too. Rosemary George, again, who he's a very famous, has written books on the Languedoc Roussillon. who also has a place down here in the south, and we want to put together a top team to show what this region can do, because it's a story that's well worth telling.
And Matthew, how many webinars are there altogether in this master level program?
In total, I think the total is 15 different webinars. And it will cover everything from the history. I mean, there are 2,600 years of history in this region. So it will cover everything from the history through all the different appellations, obviously the geology, and also the commercial aspects, the trends, what's happening, things like organic, biodynamic, and also the difficulties it is for the producers here and how they try to export their wines and sell their wines here in the domestic market.
In the domestic market. Isn't that a riot? Wow. Okay, so the first one is March 12th, and we will have links up for people to learn more and join. If they join French Wine Society, they get a discount, I'm sure, is what I remember from the past.
I think so, yeah. You need to look at the French Wine Society website, but I'm pretty sure that's the case, yeah. So sign up to the French Wine Society, and then you can sign up to the program. And you get the 15 webinars. We'll also give advice on wines that we're going to taste throughout the program.
Okay.
And we'll have suggested wine for each webinar, which people can, if they can, buy in advance, and we can taste together during the webinar, which will be some fun.
Oh, very good. And the webinar is actually, it's live in real time.
It's live in real time, yeah. And I think if you miss the webinar, there's an opportunity to download it and listen to it at your leisure. And
do you typically have participants from all over the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's open to everybody. I mean, there are students who sign up from anywhere in the world. I think US obviously is the main market, but I think the Far East, there are more people coming from there, and Europe too, so anybody can sign up.
But it's all in English. It's all in English.
It's all in English, yeah. The whole course is in English.
So I bet if you studied French language, then you just are like a kid in a candy store, being able to speak French every day.
Yes, I am, and it's very important when you live in a foreign country and your business is based here that you can speak the language, and it's true. And I run courses in French as well as in English too. Okay. And I have a very important French client base. Over a third of my clients are French. So
really. And is it like, can people also, do you have package deals where people come for 2 or 3 days and for a tour and for tastings and class time and in the restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I run tastings all year round. As far as packages go, we do run wine tours. In fact, we're running one with the French Wine Society in June, a whole 5-day, a week-long trip to the region, which will be starting in the northern part in Pic-Saint-Loup and gradually working our way down to the southern part in the Roussillon. And you'll get a chance to see all the different landscapes, soil types. We'll go and see some fantastic producers. And also you get some good cultural hits too. We'll go to the Cité in Carcassonne, and if there's time, go to the Pont du Gard and places like that. So.
Oh, Matthew Stubbs, you are a very, very lucky man. We thank you so very much for your time today, and I hope that this inspires or we're actually turning some people on to this program and actually the tour as well. I love the French Wine Society and what they do. You have a delicious rest of the evening.
I will do. And, sign up to the program and come and see why it's going to be the next classic wine region of France.
Matthew, thank you so very much for your time.
You're welcome.
And safe travel to Shanghai tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Wow. I'm speechless. This would be so cool as a present for somebody that they do this master level program on the south of France, Sud de France, and then book this 5-day tour with Matthew in the south of France in June, and kids are out of school, back to back. If you're a retailer, if you're a restaurateur, if you're just a wine lover, or you're just looking for an idea to learn something, if you're a history buff, Oh, this is so glorious. This is just wonderful. All you need is a little bit of money to pay for this and some time to be able to get away and a passport that works. I'd go in a heartbeat if I could. Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWineRadio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.